Excellent, thank you. All right, well, we'll just go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody being here. I am Joel Bramhall. I am the Cclc Director for Crete Public Schools. So what is Cclc? We are Cardinal Community Learning Centers. We are the out of school time program or the after school program for Crete Public Schools. So a little bit about me and this presentation. So first, a little bit about me. I have been in this role since April of 2020. So the pandemic had just started. Prior to that, I was a nonprofit director of education in Oklahoma City, where we engaged inner city youth in gardening. So that was quite a unique experience. And prior to that, I was a history teacher and government teacher at Columbus High School in Columbus, Nebraska. And I did that for 7 years. So I've seen it sort of from many different sides, right? And been involved in after school in various capacities. So context for this presentation. The context is when I was hired in April of 2020 as the director of Cclc for Crete, I inherited a program that was lost. And maybe some of you feel that way. Maybe you're starting a new program, or maybe you're off and running and you're just looking for some tips and tricks. That's what this is for. So if you're just getting started, let me tell you my story real quick before I dive in. So I arrived in April of 2020. The program is lost. They didn't know who they were or what they were supposed to be. I had site coordinators who had never met each other, despite being in a town of 6,000. They had never met each other. They were very siloed in their 4 buildings. We had staff who had inappropriate relations with staff, inappropriate relationships with students. So we had to clean up that mess. We had data that was inaccurate and files that were deleted. We had incorrect use of the program, and from a workplace culture and an organizational standpoint, it was a nightmare. So walking in after that first 3 hours, I thought, what am I doing here? Did I make the right decision? But I know the value of reaching students and reaching them beyond just the school day. You know, you may feel like you're starting below ground zero. That's kind of how I felt. If you're starting new, which I know some of you are, that's great, but it comes with its own challenges, because even though I inherited some of those things, I also inherited some great things. I inherited some wonderful staff, some really solid processes that were in place already. I know as I was going into this role, I thought this is like trying to be a football coach with never having watched a football game before. Like, how do I get people to buy in? So what we wanted to do is create a structure, some organization. I heard it over and over again from my staff. So we believe that since April 2020, we've done that. We've been able to do that, and I'm going to share those with you. So whether if you're just starting out or if you've been here a while in after school, I hope this helps. I'm going to share some templates, resources, and things that have worked for us. So beliefs, these are my deeply held beliefs. One is that after school programs are an extension of the school day, which is different than being a continuation of the school day. No student wants to stay in school longer than 8 hours. But we know that if they're in our program, they're going to benefit. So I'll dive into how I believe there's a difference between saying we're an extension of the school day and not a continuation of it. The next thing I believe, and these are kind of fighting words, right? But instead you pitch your program, you explain your program, you can communicate your message. We are more than just after school. I've heard it so many times. And some of that is, that's just been the acceptable lexicon. Maybe they don't fully understand what we're doing. So we have to become better in our message. We have to brand ourselves. We have to market ourselves and advertise ourselves in a way that we appreciate, that is honest and fair. Because if we don't tell our story, they're telling your story, and it may not be the story you want told. So with those beliefs, one thing I've seen is our students shine. They shine on a Tuesday at 4:30, where we think of shining in school as on the basketball court, Saturday night at 8:30 when the lights are bright and all the people have come seen you. But I can tell you at Tuesday at 4:30 in our gardening and nutrition club, there's some students who are really shining in there. If it's our Dungeons and Dragons club, maybe it's our chess club. Those kids are shining. And so it's being able to give them an outlet, unlocking their talents, not only doing that for students, but also for staff, because some of those individuals, some of those students, they're shining on Saturday night on the basketball court, and they're also shining Tuesday at 4:30. So it's about taking action. And this is where I get passionate about because I know how it's revolutionized our program, which is telling our story. If we identify the basic building blocks of who we are. So by defining who, what, and how we do it, I think it's that simple. I really do. Educating the public, educating our stakeholders on what we are is so important. Otherwise, it's just after school, right? We all know what it was like, at least some sort of shared frame of reference of what it was like to be a second grader. What is the second grade school experience? For the most part, we all share some sort of similarities there. But if you ask somebody what it's like to attend an after-school program, well, I've seen a lot of after-school programs in the last few years. There's a million different ways of how after-school looks, and many people have never experienced an after-school program. So we need to tell them, invite them, show them. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. I'm going to show you how we've built this program, the who, what, and the how. You may have seen me at other presentations, if it's administrator days, if it was yesterday in Hastings at the Nature Conference, but we want to educate our stakeholders. And as you see here, this logo, we came in, when I came in, I said, what do you guys need? And they said, things need to be streamlined. People need to know what we do. So we got our logo, we changed our name a little bit. We're no longer Crete Cardinal Learning Centers, we're Cardinal Community Learning Centers. We're supporting that, we're changing our own narrative, right? So you'll see the branding all throughout this. So part one is who. This was a video, it's real short, just like 4.5 minutes, that was captured during the pandemic, unfortunately, so students' faces are covered. But it was designed to give you just a little bit of a glimpse into our program. And I feel like the turnaround has been wonderful. And it's because we've unlocked student potential. I feel like we've tapped into what staff want and what staff need and provide that support along with accountability. I don't think we can forget accountability in this. And I'll get into this later, because I truly believe that accountability gives us credibility.
After-school programming is mission critical for us here in Crete. Here at Crete Public Schools, we have an after-school program at all 4 of our sites.
CCLC aligns with the school day by accessing classroom resources and then providing enrichment opportunities for our students.
CCLC has been an important part for my family because CCLC grants them opportunities to participate in programs that they would never be able to otherwise. They reinforce what they learn at school. They find fun ways to do that. It's been very meaningful how much they care for the kids, and they show it with what they do.
I have noticed that when there's programs happening after school, I get a chance to come in and see what they're involved in. It brings a whole other level of connecting with the school. My kids, they tell me a lot, especially my youngest, with the dance and the theater. And it's like, Mom, come watch me, you know?
CCLC supports our academic goals by providing those extra opportunities that kids need to be successful. I truly believe that every kid deserves a phenomenal experience, and every kid deserves the right to reach their maximum potential. Sometimes, for some kids, that doesn't happen from 8 to 3:30. We have those opportunities for kids where they can be with caring adults who know them, who are building relationships with them, who can support them academically, socially, emotionally. And when we can do that and truly support that whole child, they're going to be that much more successful at Crete Public Schools and then ultimately in life.
One of our enrichment opportunities is GPA, or Greenhouse Prairie and Arboretum Project. This provides students with the opportunity to get involved in hands-on learning, whether it be outdoors in the Arboretum and Prairie or growing plants in the greenhouse. The successes that I've seen from the GPA project go far beyond just the visual. It's sort of the immeasurable.
Right now we are in the greenhouse at Crete Public Schools, right next to the Arboretum. I got interested because I want to be a teacher one day, and so I thought learning from people who also want to be teachers and other teachers would just be like a really good opportunity for me. Plus, I grew up at my grandpa's farm, so I just love plants and animals and all that. So
the GPA program, I think, is a great opportunity to give back to the community, because a lot of things we do in the greenhouse goes to different community members.
Our after-school program really allows the community to connect with us, and so it truly becomes the village. And it's the village that's important to bringing all kids along and making sure that every kid in Crete Public Schools is successful.
Partnerships are vital to CCLC.
When CCLC is focused on closing the achievement gap, especially in the classroom, that comes about through hands-on learning, when students can make it applicable to their real life. And you do that by bringing in wonderful partners. We have multiple businesses in town and multiple community members that are here on site volunteering their time just to be with our kids, almost in a mentor kind of way. And ultimately, CCLC is looking to build partnerships that are meaningful for everyone. That's going to advance the future of this community. My vision for success at Crete Public Schools is that when every single graduate walks across that stage, they have a plan and they are prepared to thrive in whatever that plan is. It's just one additional piece that we can do to ensure that every kid has that plan and is prepared to thrive, so that on graduation day, when I have the honor of handing every graduate their diploma and shaking their hand, I know that Crete Public Schools and CCLC has done everything that we possibly can to ensure that they are prepared to thrive in whatever their next step might be.
So that's usually my intro in any sort of community partnership pitch or any way that we're trying to build rapport and understanding of who and what we are. Let me see if I can get this working real quick. So talking about the basic building blocks here, I'm going to go through ours real quick and then give some tips and tricks of what's worked for us. So to begin with, coming up with a shared vision, understanding what are we trying to achieve, not our everyday mission, but our actual vision. What do we desire to be? And we came up with this as a group, as a collaborative group. So there's myself as the director full-time. We have 4 sites. We have a full-time site coordinator at each. And then each year we try to roster, it ends up being about 105 part-time employees. And that ranges everything from university scholars to classified staff, high school students. So with the vision, we want to close achievement gaps. We're not doing that yet. We're not measuring that yet. We'd like to think that somehow we're probably contributing to the closing of achievement gaps, but that is part of our vision to get there. What we've really honed in on is this second part, that we're facilitating a profound enrichment learning environment where students, and this is my unofficial motto, and you'll be tired of me saying it by the end of this, supervised, safe, and fed. If your student, your child is attending CCLC, you know that they are supervised, safe, and fed. That is part of internal messaging to our staff, external messaging to our stakeholders, that students are supervised, safe, and fed. What does that mean? Well, first off, if they're supervised, that means a caring staff is facilitating the recreation, the enrichment activities that we're aligning to academic goals. So that means that they're supervised. They're safe. They're enjoying a fun and inclusive environment. I think that's very important as we move forward, that we're encouraging teamwork. The future of our work, regardless if we're at home, is typically through teams and working with others. And then fed, we offer a snack every day, immediately following the school day. And then each evening we offer dinner. So we use multiple USDA programs to make that happen. So supervised, safe, and fed. We are a grant-funded project. So grant-funded project, we understand, everybody in this room definitely understands that the money will run out someday. That it's a limited term, 21st century grant. At the end of 20 years, we got to make sure we have the partnerships in place to sustain us. So it's building those partnerships now. Trying to educate the public on what that is, I designed this, how CCLC is funded, a very simplified version, and maybe this is the old AP government teacher coming out in me. But we hang these flyers, we share these flyers with our staff, the teachers when we present at the start of the year, the mid-year, and the end of the year. We want to make sure that we are educating them on how we're funded, that their involvement is important. So you see here, the American taxpayers dropping their money in federal taxes. It's going to Congress. Congress has the money. And with that, they're going to allocate some to the Department of Education, and the Department of Education at the federal level will then earmark it for 21st century learning. And 21st century learning will then go to the states. Each state has an agency or a state education department, which then if you're a site, after school sites, like I said, we have 4. All 4 are competing against each other for this money every time we have a competition. We want to make sure that when those funds are coming up, that we have proven that we have a need in our community. We've secured the community partner match 1-to-1, and that we're following all the rules and regulations that go with it. So this is just a quick way to educate. If it's your school board, you can use this, steal this. I can send you the template and you can change it yourself, and that goes for everything here. I want to share and have you be a part of this, because I think getting the message of not just after school is important. So then I also created how CCLC is sustained. It really comes down to families. If we're going to remain free of charge, as CCLC is, and open to all K-12 families within the district boundaries, regardless if they're public school students or if they go to St. James or they're homeschooled, we're open to all, and it's free. We have to make sure that we have active participants who are well-informed stakeholders. You got to be an advocate for us in the public. You're championing what CCLC is doing. And that falls upon me, that falls upon my staff to get that message out there. We have a network of partners, regardless if it's private business, public agencies who volunteer their time, in-kind contributions, cash funding, right? I mean, that's always important as well. But we'll see a lot of different opportunities of how we get our partners involved. And in addition to these government grants, we're constantly seeking, I know a big part of my job is not only grant writing, but seeking these additional, what I call supplemental grants. What are the grants out there? If they're ELO through NDE, if it's Whispering Roots, if it's something to improve the outdoor space, always trying to find an organization, some even private donors who are willing to help us with grants. And then enough can't be said about Crete Public Schools, identifying that there was a need for after school 18 years ago in our community, and starting at the elementary level. And over time, we've added all K-12 programming to have after school. So as I mentioned, we are open to all K-12 age students, homeschooled, non-public. We are free of charge. We want to remain free of charge. That falls largely on our plates as directors. If yours is free of charge, to make sure you've sustained that funding and that funding is going to support you moving forward. We have 4 different sites, as I had mentioned before. Our sites are sort of divided in the sense of how we operate, but we collaborate each week. We're all in communication and we know each other. The high school and middle school is automatic enrollment. It means students can come and go as they see fit. They have to badge in and badge out through the system that we have to make sure they're there. If a fire alarm happens on our phone, we can quickly pull up our app and know who's in program and who's out of program. It's a safety concern. But they can't come and go at the middle school and high school. Club format, so we offer clubs, always rotating. Student voice, what do you want to learn? Let's build a club, let's figure it out. We're at the intermediate and elementary, it's got to be more structured, right? They have choice, but they don't necessarily have a whole lot of voice when it comes to that point. We do have registration. Registration is required K-5 this last year. And if you want to get our registration form and see it live, that's the QR code right there. I built it out. It took me a while to get it online. The first year we did paper. It was a mess. Second year we went to this form and we just kept improving it. So this is the QR code to get our registration form. I did have it on like 5 Google form pages, but I put it all in one so that way you don't have to click through and do all the required stuff. You can just see all the questions that are on there. And this is our process, and we're very transparent. We post any sort of external observation results we get, registration forms. People know that this is the process, that we're going to be evaluated. Here's our process. We're going to do a registration form. Here's the process. We want people to know. So through social media, through our webpage, word of mouth, physical flyers, you know that if, as a parent, you submit a registration form, it's going to be processed and verified. We verify all of that information through the district, including the priority enrollment categories. They're all verified through our special programs. And then from there, either you're going to go to student enrollment in CCLC, or you're going to go to the infamous wait list, right? Now, we are going to give priority enrollment to underserved populations. Everybody knows the 5 categories of underserved populations. And we're going to work diligently to get enough staff, because that 15-to-1 rule will get us every time, right? 15 students to every 1 adult. So there's our categories for priority enrollment that allow you to jump the timestamp of the registration form if you qualify for 1 or multiple. So as I said, it's verified. And it's improving. So in the past, as I said, I inherited an interesting program. It's unique in the challenges. they hadn't always followed this priority enrollment as closely as they should. And we know we have to be within 5% of our school building demographics in those categories for which we serve. This year, we really tightened it up. We knew exactly where our numbers were. We tightened up the process, and that upset some folks who were quite used to their kids being in CCLC, especially when you see we had 374 registrants. So we were able to enroll K through 2 134 as of September 13th. That leaves 45 on the wait list. Intermediate, we've enrolled 92 with 88 on the wait list. And then of course, if you're non-public school, you're still registering anyways, if you're beyond that. So just K through 5. That becomes a challenge though. So in a community of 6,000, we are an ag community, but I would say we're industry first. And Crete is unique that way. We have Nestle Purina, we have what used to be farmland, now Smithfield. We have some local and more regional industries. So we have a diverse population. We have major global brands. And at the same time, we are still a small town. So when I'm going out to promote our program and say, hey, can you offer this free tour? Or can you give us $500 for this activity? It's a challenge when maybe their child, the president of the bank, their child didn't get in. They're on the wait list, right? So it's like, yeah, $500 would be great, but yeah, your kid's still not in, sorry. So that's a little bit of a challenge in a small town. And I'm sure you guys are all aware of how that goes. This is the QR code to the CCLC webpage. I post a number of the templates that you'll see today. Our handbook, rewritten all of the handbooks, student handbook, staff handbook, you name it, it's probably there. And we have a wonderful quote from one of our site coordinators, Stacy Shepard. She goes, I love it when students are engaged in activity. They're so engaged, they refuse to go home when their parent arrives for pickup. And they will stay in the activity, and we have to call them multiple times on the walkie-talkie, and sometimes even the site coordinator has to go and get them out of the room and take them so they can go home. And I think that's a real heartwarming story to hear and definitely to see. Gonna run through real quick just our numbers from last year. So our numbers from last year, we served 1,243 total attendees, but as we all know in this room, the 833 is what really gets us our funding and our daily rate, because those are regular attenders, individuals who it used to be attended at least 1 hour on 30 days throughout the school year. Now it's just attended 30 hours throughout the school year, but 833. So that's part of our supervised. Our safe, last year we ended up rostering 97 part-time staff. We had 4 full-time site coordinators and myself. And then in terms of fed, and this is why I advocate for tracking your numbers. Your numbers are going to give you credibility here. 56,000 snacks were handed out K through 12 after school. 22,931 dinners. So what's the alternative of supervised safe fed? Alone? Unsafe at home or on the street and hungry? So we have to think about this, especially as we move forward and we want to tell our story. Sometimes just the contrast is enough to get movement. Then, like I said, the big part of our safety is having the student ID badge, scanning them in, scanning them out of program, knowing that they're there. If you want to see just a percentage of our student body, in the total district, we have 1,976 students. To know that 1,243 attended our program. Now, granted, you throw in a few extra parochial students and homeschool students, but nonetheless, it gets us to 63%. And that's with registration at the elementary and intermediate. Average daily attendance, as we track it, that's 424. 424 students we know in the Crete community are supervised, safe, and fed every day. If you walked into our 4 programs total, 424 that are supervised, safe, fed. We all have our goals. We know our grants. The goals are important. That's how we achieve our grant award and keep our programs going. So we have our goal, and then we have our results. And so then that just shows us our total attendees, those who fell less than 30 hours, our regular attendees achieved 30 hours, celebrate that success with them, and then your distance to the goal. And we surpassed all of our goals this last year, except for at the elementary. And we were just short on staff. Sometimes a student will sign up, they don't attend, you call them, you fill their place, but it just doesn't get everybody to their 30 hours. I want to go kind of fast here, but I want to get through as much as possible. Student attendance by grade. So the system that we use, tracks everything by grade down to the millisecond as well in terms of attendance. You'll see we did a pretty good job of starting it with kindergarten in the blue up there and working our way through K-5, pretty average in the high 40s to the low 60s. And then you get to middle school, which is open enrollment, and we get some large numbers. And then by the time you get to the seniors, it starts dropping off again. Well, why? High school students are very involved, right? Not only are they involved in their schools, they're involved in sports, but they have jobs. Sometimes they babysit their younger siblings. They're very active. They can drive. So freshmen and sophomores here at the 140 and 159, those numbers are consistent, but it really starts dropping off once they turn 16. And then we just compare our data from the year before 2021 to 21-22. And the difference that you see here of percentage increase for the middle school, where you see 191% increase in total attendees, 254 in regular attendees, that's because we changed our format. Instead of having registration for grades 6 through 8, we just went open enrollment. You can attend at any time. Here's the clubs we're offering. Our clubs fill up, then we have additional homework help and assistance. So just trying to be as appealing and attractive to youngsters as possible. So that's the who. What makes us who we are? Well, what makes us who we are is that we have a great district who is supporting us. So I am part of what they call the district leadership team. I get to be a member of that. So I get to be a vocal advocate for our after school program on the district leadership team. So you see me there. And with that, then Cclc is built out where we have 4 sites, each with their own site coordinator. The site coordinators and I meet at least once a week, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock in the blue conference room for weekly collaboration. And it's an hour to an hour and a half where we get to hammer out challenges, successes, new business, old business, and just the idea that sometimes you can vent to somebody who kind of understands your challenges is healthy and positive, right? And there's different types of venting. We could get into that. There'd be a whole different discussion, but we had to learn that. I always want to make sure that we're promoting on social media and in physical flyers how important our staff are. Our site coordinators, I created this here, superhero. They're a leader, a comforter, caregiver, on and on and on. Because after the final bell rings and the school staff leaves, a superhero has to emerge. Now, when you see all those terms there, what I really wanted to write was this, that they assume to a certain degree the duty of principal and counselor and teacher. Maybe some of you have assumed these duties: front office, nurse, IT breaks down, needs a battery somewhere. Sorry, you're about the only one left in the building. So to some degree, you're assuming that role. And I think it goes misunderstood or just not seen at all because the staff are gone. And I get it, 8 hours in a school day. I was a teacher, let's get out of there, right? But things are happening that are really positive. So then the backside of this flyer was the superpowers. And I always, when I'm talking to administrators and trying to get them to understand what we are, is I say, our site coordinators have more face-to-face interaction with parents than you do, than your teachers do. Every single day, that parent is coming to the front door to pick up their kid. They may be upset about work. They may be upset about something that their kid did during the school day, but we get to hear about all of it, right? Good or bad. But that allows us to be a bridge to building relationships, community resources. So then the second half here is, yeah, the staff members. One thing we tried to do when I came in is flatten the hierarchy. There's one person responsible for that site, and that's the site coordinator. There's no lead teachers, there are no assistants, and I know sometimes that's an incentive to try to get your staff to feel better. I think, and it's been proven, at least in our program, flatten that hierarchy. There's one person who's responsible, one person who has to answer for what's going on in that program. They're going to answer to me, and then I have to answer for everything. Here's our part-time staff that we rostered just this last year. So remember, availabilities of coursework for university scholars go like this. They're in athletics as well. And we know this is a part-time job. They're not professed teachers. They're just part-time. Well, if that's the case, we got to find a way to make it important for them and understand and be flexible with their availability. So we try to do that. So we have university students from Doane, the University of Nebraska, SEC, and we have one staffer who lives in Crete, but goes to Iowa State and comes back on break. So we'll count Iowa State as well. And then 7 federal work study, as you can see, part of that 64 of our staff who were rostered as university scholars last year. High school students are great. It gives them a wonderful opportunity to test out if they like education, working with children. At the same time, if they're not 19 years old, guess what? They don't count in your 15-to-1 mandated ratio. So if you ever get observed officially or unofficially, you could be in trouble there. And with our high school and university scholars, we know 25% of them are going to graduate and move on. So we're always refilling, rehiring. And I like to say our program, yes, we're K-12, but we're really K-16. For some of these college students, this is the first job they've ever had. And if this is the first job, you may not have all the professional skills you need. So we can get you the certifications and the training, but ultimately that does fall on us to make sure that we're providing them with those resources. Advertising. How many of you are going through staffing crisis struggles right now? We typically start the year with about 74 part-time staff. We had 38 when we started school this year, and 2 of them were hired a day before that. So we couldn't even get them onboarded in time. We advertise on 16 different job platforms online. We do job fairs. We do online job fairs. We go to table booths at colleges during lunch. We make the phone interview very quick, 5 minutes. We do onboarding for the district, background check, all of that good stuff, all electronically, and then bring them in for their actual onboarding. But it is quite a lift, as you all know. And after school has a lot of challenges with it. It's extremely rewarding, but I think the flexibility piece can be the most challenging, right? But I do sell the idea of no weekends, no holidays. And you get to call back and tell mom and dad, you know, hey, yeah, not only am I taking a full course load, but I have a job. And they think that's so great. And they don't realize that they're only working Wednesdays from 4 to 5:30. Uniformity is something that we push. And so we make sure that if you walk into one of our campus sites, that you can identify who CCLC staff are. When you're hired, you get 2 CCLC shirts for free. It's part of our uniform. The blue shirt identifies who we are. We also have jackets, fanny packs, everything. We've gone all out trying to identify who we are because it's student safety, right? I visited other programs that just, you don't know, is this stranger danger or is this the site coordinator? No idea. Inclusion, we make sure everybody has a CPS email. They attend the professional development days. I'm talking about teacher professional development days. You want your staff to be there. Why? Not all of them can, but why do you want at least your site coordinators there? It puts them on a little bit more level playing surface with those teachers. They see them as part of the team. It's easier to engage them to help with after school. Google Classroom, we have our own staff Google Classroom, 24/7 access to all of our handbooks, all of the details. And then, as I mentioned, the CPR certifications, the safe schools, the first aid. That's a huge selling point for some people who are 19, 20 years old looking for a job. They're going to be able to get certified. We'll pay you to get certified in these. There you see part of our staff for the high school, their blue shirts. We have a wonderful superintendent who's very young and energetic at Crete, Dr. McDowell. And one thing he promotes is that we're going to give high levels of support, but there must be high standards for accountability as well. It's a simple concept, but it's not always that easy in practice. So I'm going to walk through just a little bit of how we do that for our staff. One way we do that is we refer to the programming rubric and the site observation rubric. You're probably all very familiar with these large PDFs that can be confusing. We took those and we adapted it. And we said, we know what the goals are of 21st century learning. You go to their front page, it's always there. Then let's just go through the expectations as lined out in the 2 rubrics. And so when you do that, let me see if I can click here. Here's an example page from the rubric. You just go to connecting the programming rubric. We want evidence of preparation. Yep. The first bullet point is activity leaders appear to follow a plan. That's part of the description. And then when UNMC comes to observe us, it says that if we're maturing, it's because an activity leader appears to follow a plan. So we're trying to be as accountable as possible. But this also gives us support in how to train our staff and be very clear about that. Now the rubric, it says emerging, maturing, excelling. Does everybody understand or have seen this rubric of how you're going to be evaluated every year? Sometimes I feel like there's a little ambiguity in what emerging looks like to maturing to excelling. So when you do have those feedbacks, we've received mostly all positive feedback. I think there is some ambiguity with it. There is the $500 per site fee. And I know one thing I've asked for is, can we get training? Can we have a demonstration tutorial on each descriptor? Even if it's just 2 minutes, can UNMC provide that at $500 a cost per site? I think that would definitely be something we would like to have. They don't seem to have the resources for it. Anytime I talk to UNMC, I make sure no matter how they're connected to there, I talk about this, because I think if we can all talk about it, if we see it as a problem, it can lead to change. Or maybe we pool our money together to try to get some training. Because I know for my staff, if they're better trained, the behaviors are better for my students, the program runs smoother. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think we can't complain unless we're willing to offer a solution or a suggestion. So with the programming rubric and site observation, we just went ahead and made these into Google Forms. So the executive director of curriculum, instruction, and assessment at Crete Public Schools, him and I will walk around on our phones with Google Forms, and we'll say, okay, you're going to take site observation today at the elementary. I'm going to go do program rubric observation at the high school. We're on our Google form, and we're just rolling through that template that we've created that's based on the rubric and the expectations and descriptors that the state has given us. And right there, we have it all time-stamped. We know who the presenter was. And it's not to catch anything that's going wrong. It's to see the things that are going well, areas of improvement. It just allows us to track that data a little bit better. Any questions over that? I know I'm going kind of fast, but everybody good so far? Okay. So beyond that rubric, what does it look like day to day? I was able to work with one of our former site coordinators who went on to be a librarian. And we got it down to these 3 buckets: behavioral, emotional, and cognitive. That when our staff walks in, this is something that, yeah, we can slide them the 56 descriptors from NDE that we adapted, but here are the tools that are going to allow you to be successful. And we broke it down like this: behavioral, you're going to adhere to plans. And then you have, of course, your indicators below, the clear directives, proactive supervision, what that looks like. We give them resources to access and training for each of those indicators. But ultimately, there are no lone rangers in discipline. After school, it's easy for professionalism to fall. But one thing about it, we need to be more professional than ever, because we don't have the counselors, we don't have the principals in building necessarily. We need to be professional. So no lone rangers in discipline. The only one who has any sort of latitude in discipline would be the site coordinator. And if we have any aggressive behavior, I do believe in letting boys be boys, but boys can't be boys when they're overly violent after school in my program, sorry. So 2 weeks automatic suspension for aggressive behavior in our program K-12. We leave it in our handbook as, we can go back on the camera, we can have discussions, and maybe we can lengthen that or shorten that based upon what we decide. But it's an automatic 2-week suspension. We call the parent at the time and the parent comes. If it's really bad, then we'll have to involve the police as well. But it is something where I think having the 2 weeks, right? Knowing that your child's not going to be supervised, safe, and fed after school, that you're going to have to get off work early, you're going to have to come and pick them up, and they're not getting snack. You know what? It might just be easier to make sure I tell my boys or my girls to cool it, have fun after school, but there's no reason for behavior problems. And we've seen behavior really decrease as a result of this 2-week policy. Friendly, not friends. It's something I learned in teacher college. You can be friendly, not friends. Same goes, I think, for staff if you're a supervisor. Friendly, not friends. Especially when you have staff who are university students who just graduated Crete High, who are working now with Crete High. You got to be careful of separating those things. So friendly, not friends. And then cognitively, we are about instructional delivery, not lesson planning. When I arrived, every club, every activity, the part-time staff was developing their own lesson plan. And I'm going, as a teacher, I didn't develop lesson plans this detailed. There's no way. And I can see why staff wouldn't want to stay around very long. So we flipped it. We got pre-made curriculum. We adapt that. We have the supplies ready to go. And it's all about them showcasing their talent and their personalities coming out in what we've given them for the day. And here's an example of it. So this is under cognitive, encourage learning, emphasis on vocabulary. and you'll see that they're doing board races. And you're going to hear the name Patrick Mahomes. That's actually the name of the student group up there. Patrick Mahomes was not attending our program that day.
Glasses. Nice. Acorn and Lakers got it at the same time. All right, so Patrick Mahomes, glasses, let's spell it real quick.
So being able to give our staff tools to help them, different activities and challenges. One thing about it is we want to measure our own success. If we're going to tell our own story, we need to know how we're measuring success. We got it down to this. Again, I'm not going to walk through everything, but I want you to know it needs to be quantitative and qualitative, right? So that way we know our student attendance goals, what our fiscal tracking is, how many snacks we served, as well as are we fostering healthy relationships? Do we have operations that support our staff? So an instance here, this is just a comparison. We keep track of our snack and dinner numbers every single day so we can compare them across months and across years. We keep track of if a partner gave time, if they donated goods, if they discounted goods or services, if they volunteered time as part of our fiscal tracking Google form, which then gives us all sorts of wonderful responses and makes some of those documents that Jan shares with us and says, hey, you've got 2 weeks to fill this out. It's a lot easier if you have this fiscal tracking document to go back to. So when it comes to messaging, I avoid those 3 words. When I'm presenting to the school board or I'm presenting to a civic club in town or parents, you're not going to hear those because they hear those words and they think it's just after school. In that storytelling, if we're doing wonderful things consistently, repeatedly, we have the internal messaging down, the external messaging down, and we're doing wonderful, let's not be Frank Sinatra in our garage anymore. Let's go share our gifts with the world and what's out there. So sing it loudly, sing your message. And with that, I think that comes down to the presentations, the parent email list that we have just to update our parents. We issue a weekly newsletter. We do site level management meetings where we bring in a stakeholder, a partner, if it's a staffer, a teacher, trying to get them involved in those quarterly site level management meetings. We have everybody follow us on Cardinal Centers. We try to get feedback from our parents saying how wonderful the program is. And I'm going to break my rule right away, but this is to prove a point. So childcare, how much are we saving families in childcare? The average cost per hour in Nebraska last year was $12.61 an hour. There's our programming hours per day, the number of days, and just regular attenders K through 5, not total attenders, not kids who are in grades 6 or 7. These are just K through 5 regular attenders. We saved the Crete community families $1.7 million because of our after school program, just in that childcare costs, right? So then the last part here is how, the extension versus continuation. I think there's an important distinction between that for after school in terms of our capabilities. So we saw that with the superpower of the superhero site coordinator of we don't have all the capabilities of the school day. Our rules have to be a little bit different. If we were a continuation, I don't want to follow every IEP plan. We'll do the best we can if there's different accommodations we have to make, but we just don't have the resources to do it. And then we broke down our how into these categories, from profound enrichment to being an incubator site for clubs, family engagement events, special, unique projects, teachers, and grants. So with profound enrichment, I'm just going to go real quickly here. I'm going to give you an example of the intermediate. So these are the pre-made curriculums. These are the pre-made curriculums from the classroom time here on the left, from 4:15 to 5 o'clock, and we have it rotated by days. They're going to do second step on Mondays, and then short little mini sessions Tuesday through Fridays. We have everything from financial literacy to social studies. We want to make sure that we hit the core subject and then more. That's just in classroom time. And after dinner clubs, that's where things become a little more free or even more student voice and choice in terms of the intermediate. So you see everything from escape room games to painting, strategic games, coding as an option. So these are all things that we're providing to our students as pre-made curriculum that allows our instructors or our staff to focus on instructional delivery, delivering their talents, their personality, rather than lesson planning. And here it is broken down in more of the spreadsheet form of what you just saw. But we have it by grade, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We have our second step, Bonsai Junior, and we have it down by the minute per week, or excuse me, per day as we go through the week. Now it's not perfect. We adjust things. We have all sorts of extra activities, but it's trying to be as purposeful in what we do and as organized and structured as we can. This is the Cclc Journal that goes out every week. This goes to the high school students, as well as friends, families of Cclc, advertising things that have happened, things that are coming up, putting a staff or student spotlight, club spotlight. We have our suggestions down at the bottom because, again, if you're at the high school and middle school where it's automatic enrollment, we are focusing on the idea of student voice. What do you want to do and how can we make it happen? How am I doing on time, by the way? I feel like I might be over. Okay. It's about 5 minutes. All right. 2:20, is that right? Yeah. Okay. So again, part of organization we see here at the middle school. We have the middle school, what I would call the negotiated agreement clubs. So these are the sports and clubs that are part of the negotiated agreement that teachers or sponsors are getting paid for. It's approved by the school board. On the other side, that's Cclc clubs for the middle school. That's everything from your cardio club to your foreign films, baking, astronomy club, video squad. Those are the things that we do, making that distinction so students know, so teachers and administrators understand that there's a difference between the school day and the extension part of Cclc. We serve as an incubator. An incubator site, here we see the high school have a little more activities on their negotiated agreement because NSAA for sports sponsors and FFA, FBLA. But offering these clubs in Cclc there on the right, and they're always evolving and changing. We want to make sure we're extremely clear that we can serve as an incubator. Are you interested in something specific, such as GSA, Gay Straight Alliance? That was a topic that came from our students and says, we don't feel like we have support from our school, from our community. Can we start this club? And the district had numerous conversations about it. We were included, the students were included, surveys were conducted. Cclc makes a wonderful incubator site of, you know what, let's try it in Cclc. Let's be open. Let's bring a University of Nebraska PhD student in who can help lead these conversations, guide these conversations appropriately, someone you can connect with, but isn't necessarily a counselor, because we want to make sure we understand the lines that are drawn and what's appropriate and not for after school or school. But being able to have that proposed idea from a student, from a teacher, and say, is this something that's Cclc? Is this something I want to pursue the negotiated agreement with? And we've seen that. We used to have a business club in Cclc that turned into the FBLA club. They went ahead and got their organized charter, and there we go. So it just takes that sort of approach that we're here to incubate ideas. Maybe the idea stays in Cclc, and that's great. We want it to. But if it decides to get bigger and you've proved yourself, then we can go ahead and move from there. Family engagement events. This is just a lot of fun. I'm just going to go through these real quick. Held the job fair, and we ended up with more parents trying to seek jobs than students. All sorts of open house. We even do virtual events through the pandemic. Don't want to watch that. Family game nights have been really successful for us. We did slam poetry, brought in poetry slam experts from Omaha and Lincoln. Food always attracts kids. Art in the great outdoors, as you saw in the video, the GPA project or Greenhouse Prairie Arboretum. Those are 3 on-site spaces that hadn't been touched since the person who started it retired. So for about 8 or 9 years before my arrival, nothing had really happened there. So getting the students and families involved and planting trees. We brought Hastings glass blowing out, so they did a demonstration. Just any way that we can engage the public. If it's this, for example, Amber Lee Snyder was a world champion rodeo barrel racer who became paralyzed in an accident. Wonderful story, a story of grace and inspiration. We were able, through grants and partnerships, to bring her in and give a family engagement event as a result. We see the military trailer. We had a comic who gave not only a funny comic performance to families one night, but 2 hours before that gave an entrepreneurship and comedy writing workshop to our students. So those kind of opportunities that you may not think about do exist. Soccer club always taking part in things that we do. Manners to Go, I highly suggest. I don't have time to tell you everything about it. It's a wonderful program. CCLC Summer, obviously with all the ESSER money that's out there, but this was before then. This was in 2021. Students got to do some amazing things. Yeah, that's a whole nother presentation. Unique projects, everything from our Glowforge and our Cricut of how we combine what's going on in sports with what's going on during the school day to CCLC, and then making sure that we're including everybody, every stakeholder has a voice. So I'm just going to run through a bunch of these because I know I'm way short on time. I'm going to try to get to the end here. So our Arboretum, if you want to take a look, we are pioneering what I believe is the digital first approach to engagement, because where are students? Students are on their phones all the time. We would love that they would run out into nature and be fully immersed, but they're not. Where are they? They're on their phone. So let's engage them first on their phone through this digital map, and then they'll start coming to nature. And we've had great success. If you go on @Cardinal Centers on Facebook and Twitter, you'll see the most recent post that has a lot of wonderful photos of students engaged in outdoor learning. Of course, we're always trying to recruit more and more teachers, secure more funds as everybody is. We've gone through that. Wonderful partners, making sure that you celebrate your partners as I run out of time here. Partnerships are so amazing, from the global partnerships to the local. As I said, we try to be a bridge from what's going on in CCLC. Who's talking to your families in your communities more than your site coordinator? They're seeing them every day as students are being picked up. So make sure you are that bridge to the resources that exist in your community, and you understand how to track that fiscally. Jan will appreciate that. The fiscal tracking document that will allow you to identify who your community partners are and your supporters. So I think I'm out of time. So I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you for listening. I appreciate everything. If you want a copy of this, if you want to call me, please contact me. There's my contact information. Follow us @Cardinal Centers. Thank you for your time.